Men's basketball holds its end up of the Big 12 SEC Challenge. Women's basketball bounces back after a nightmare in Waco, and a dynamic wide receiver wants out of the burnt orange. All this and more coming up on College Press Box. Welcome in and thanks for joining us on this Monday night. I'm Grant Michaels and this is College Press Box. Men's hoops found themselves in action as Ole Miss paid a visit to Austin. Let's head to the drum for the highlights. An early start for the Horns as Kerwin Roach battles through the contact and a little stare down at the end. Here's Kerwin again, kicking it out to Davis, who's going to drain the three. Bamba dishing it to Coleman. Coleman finds Dylan O on the block, not going to make any mistakes there. And here's Kerwin Roach again doing his thing, untouched through the lane as he finishes with a pretty left. And of course, Dilly with the steal and the easiest basket of his life. How about the big fella for three? Mo Bamba finishing with 25 points and 15 boards throughout the game. Texas takes the win against Ole Miss, 85-72. Now our very own Aria Bastami with more on the Texas win.
On Saturday, the annual Big 12 SEC Challenge had made its way to Austin, Texas. After a win against Iowa State on Monday, the Texas Longhorns looked to defend their home court for the second time in just 6 days, as they played host to an unfamiliar foe.
The last time the Ole Miss Rebels and Texas Longhorns faced up against each other was a whopping 37 years ago. To put that in context, MASH was on live television, the Jackson 5 had started making music, and Jimmy Carter was the President of the United States. Now, with that being said, Andy Kennedy was looking to get his first road win here in the Frank Erwin Center against the Texas Longhorns, though the trio of Osakowski, Bamba, and Roach had a different agenda.
Kerwin Roach, Dylan Osakowski, and Mo Bamba combined to score 58 of Texas's 85 points in a pivotal game that the Horns desperately needed for their season.
We were just more hungry. We wanted to just win. We wanted to get on a roll, and it was a great way to start it. Just coming to the game, we all had a different mindset, and it just showed on the court.
The win over the Rebels meant that Texas had won 2 games in the same week for the first time since the middle of December. Coach Shaka Smart understood how important it was for his team to get back on track after previous disappointing losses Texas had endured earlier this season.
We talked a lot about that. Our guys have done a nice job responding when we've had a tough game. That's a big point of emphasis for us culturally. But at the same time, you know, when you win, you don't want to be any less motivated than you were after a loss.
The Longhorns have a loaded schedule coming up as they get back into Big 12 conference play. But does Shaka Smart believe his team can put up similar performances against fiercer competitors?
If Mo plays with that type of aggressiveness and assertiveness, if Dylan, plays in a DO zone, if Snoop, has that type of confidence, then yeah.
The Burnt Orange are back in action on Wednesday night, where they will meet the Texas Tech Red Raiders in Lubbock at 8 p.m. And the Horns then return home to the Erwin Center this Saturday evening against their arch rivals, as College Game Day will be in Austin for an anticipated matchup with freshman sensation Trey Young and the Oklahoma Sooners. From the drum, Aria Bastami, College Press Box.
Is this the start of Mo Bamba blossoming? As I bring in our basketball analyst, Nick Kuholtz. Nick, how good can Mo Bamba be, and is he living up to the hype that we all heard when he got to the 40 acres?
Well, he's already a stud, Grant, and I think we can finally start to say it is time that he's slowly meeting the expectations that he had when he first came on campus. He's averaging 13 points and 11 rebounds a game. He's shooting 55% from the field. Those numbers are actually relatively low compared to how he's played lately. 25 points, rather, and 15 boards against Ole Miss on Saturday. After the game, Shaka Smart said, on a scale of 1 to 10 as far as aggression goes, Bamba's only at a 6 right now. He said he started the season at a 2. We know how hard he is to stop already. I can't imagine how hard he'd be to stop at Shaka's definition of a level 10 aggression. He's one of the best freshmen in the nation.
He would be an absolute beast if we saw the 8, 9, 10 Shaka Smart rating of Mo Bamba. This past weekend, we saw the Big 12 and SEC teams cross over in the basketball world. It featured 10 matchups between the Big 12 and SEC. We saw the Big 12 only win 4 of those matches. A lot of people consider the Big 12 to be one of the strongest conferences In light of these recent results, do you find that that changes your opinion about the strength of the Big 12 conference?
It doesn't. And I think there's three conferences in college basketball that you can make the case are the best. So the two you mentioned, the SEC, the Big 12, and then the ACC to go along with them. If you want to make a case that the SEC is better than the Big 12, that's fine. But if your main argument for that is because they won 6 games in a 10-game series one weekend throughout the season, I don't think that's a logical evidence point to use. I think the ACC, I think the SEC, and I think the Big 12 are three incredible basketball conferences. But we have to remember the SEC has 14 teams whereas the Big 12 only has 10. So top to bottom, they're both incredible conferences. There's no easy win in either of them. But undoubtedly, the Big 12 is one of the best in basketball. The last place team, Iowa State, is still 2 games over 500. There's no easy win.
Well, one of those games that we saw featured over the weekend was number 12 Oklahoma. They fell on the road in Tuscaloosa to the Tide. Despite their poor result, freshman sensation Trae Young still sunk 17 points, which seems to be a low standard by the Trae Young standard. Can this young freshman sensation be stopped ever by anyone?
He certainly can't be stopped entirely, and I think come Saturday evening, Texas has to do what Coach Avery Johnson and the Alabama Crimson Tide did this past Saturday, where they limited him, as you said, to 17 points. He's averaging 29.6 points a game to go along with almost 10 assists with that. Obviously, he's one of the best players in college basketball. In my opinion, he is the best player in college basketball. Texas is going to have to find a way to just limit him. He's going to make those big plays. He's going to make big shots throughout the game, but if they can just stop him from controlling the game entirely, everything related to OU basketball revolves around Trae Young. Lon Kruger lets him do anything he wants on the court because he understands the talent he has in this young freshman. One of the best players I've ever seen in college basketball.
Well, OU will be in Austin very soon, so it'll be a very interesting matchup come next week. This is Mr. Kuholtz. Thank you for coming on. Always a pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
Well, men's hoops weren't the only ones on the court this past Saturday. The women look to take revenge on their next Big 12 opponent after getting blown out by Baylor. We'll have that and much more coming up on College Press Box. Shh. Women's basketball lost their second conference game in a disappointing blowout against Baylor. The Horns had a quick 2-day turnaround to take on the visiting Cyclones. It was neck and neck in the first half as Brooke McCarty kicks it out to LaShawn Higgs, who blows by 2 Cyclones and puts in the layup. Later on, it's Audrey Ann to Atkins, a quick 1-2, and Audrey Ann drains it. Iowa State's Emily Durr gets the handoffs and doesn't look back. Here's Texas's Higgs, gets the steal and the easiest basket of her life. Here is Iowa State's Durr again. Learn the name. She gets the pick and drives to the hoop for 2. The Horns began to pull away as Sutton drains the 3. Texas tops Iowa State 87-55. Now for more on the Texas win, here is Daniel Shee.
After losing to Baylor by 25 points, number 6 Texas intends to bounce back against Iowa State in hope to stay in hunt of the Big 12 regular season championship. Texas, however, struggles in the first quarter, allowing Iowa State to take an early lead. But the Longhorns wake up quickly to tie up the game and never looked back.
I thought that after the first quarter we did a pretty good job of adjusting to some things, and defense was pretty good for the other 3 quarters. And I thought we did a good job of sharing the ball, making some extra passes, doing some things that we've talked about in previous games that are going to be important as we move along.
The 33-point margin between Iowa State and Texas is the largest in series history.
And you got to give credit to their defense. I mean, they really got up into us, and we made some defensive mistakes. And then, we had a lot of kids tonight that committed more fouls than. That was what they did. They fouled well. We just couldn't make a shot. We had a lot of offers. We had some good looks at the basket.
Playing just 2 days after the Baylor game, the Longhorns was able to come out and play high-quality minutes.
Just a consensus to not forget about the game, but learn from it and make sure it doesn't happen. As Coach said, we had a quick turnaround, so we didn't have time to cry at night or anything or feel sorry for ourselves. We just had to go to sleep early when we came back from Baylor and go to work the next morning. So
Texas will face Kansas on the road on Wednesday for another Big 12 matchup. Then the team will return to the Drum on Saturday to face TCU. From the Frank Irwin Center, this is Daniel Hsu, College Press Box.
Joining me now to talk women's hoops is Thomas Fitch. Now, Thomas, let's talk Joyner Holmes. Can head coach Karen Ashton begin to rely on Holmes' talent as the season progresses?
Slowly. She's starting to come back. You look at this is her 10th game back, was against Iowa State. The last 3 games she started to average 20 points. So she's slowly working her way back into the lineup. The thing that she's struggling with is finding her role on the team, because she kind of wants to be a guard, but she really needs to fit on this team into the forward position. You look at, again, in the Baylor game, she tried to play more of the guard role. She was 1 for 5, only scored 3 points. But against Iowa State last Saturday, she played she was a forward, and she had a double-double. So the key for her is to just adapt into that forward role. I know she wants to play the guard role, but the shot just isn't quite there yet. But she's still a sophomore. She has time to develop over the offseason, over practices, work on the shot. But for now, she needs to stick in that forward spot, and that's going to take the pressure off the other bigs like Jatari White, like Adrienne Caron-Gaudreau. And so I think that's where she needs to be.
Well, you mentioned her youth. It'll be interesting to see how she develops through this program, and maybe she is the absolute star come senior year. Well, we saw the nightmare unfold in Waco as the Bears buried Texas 81-56. Does this result prove Baylor is a step above the Horns?
Oh, it absolutely does. But here's the thing. Baylor's number 3 in the country right now. I think they deserve to be number 1. You look at where Texas, how they fared coming into this game. Against UConn, it was a game that the Horns really should have won. Against Tech, they won by 50. And in the game after getting blown out, they won by 30 against Iowa State. So this is a Texas team that clearly is good. And not only that, look at Baylor's record. 18 of their 19 wins are by 20 or more points.
Yep.
The other by 11. So they're good. What worries me about this game, there's a lack of leadership. There's a lot of seniors on this team. Brooke McCarty, Ariel Atkins, Adrienne Caron-Gaudreau. They need to step up. This is a team, they can play great when everything goes good. But when stuff goes bad, they lose the momentum. They start playing scared. And, I mean, in the Baylor game, they were just getting bullied. They were turning the ball over, poor shots all game. And so there's too many seniors on this team for this team to play this poorly. We need McCarty, Atkins, and Caron-Gaudreau to step up if we want to have a chance to make a run in the tournament.
Right, and we see that the women's team will be back in action, hoping for a better result against TCU this Saturday. Well, Thomas, thank you for your insight as always. Coming up after the break, we will see how the other Longhorn sports fared, and one of Texas's most dynamic receiver once out of Austin. Welcome back, and joining me now is Christine Taylor. The men's tennis team was in action.
That's right, Grant. The Texas men's tennis team suffered a loss in a close match against Notre Dame on Saturday at the ITA kickoff weekend. Texas won the doubles point and saw a singles win from junior Rodrigo Banzer, but lost the match 3-4. The Longhorns came back with a 4-1 win against Tennessee on Sunday. Junior Adrian Ortiz finished off the win with a 6-3, 6-3 victory at 6 singles. The team will take on Ohio State on February 3rd.
Well, the Texas women's tennis team earned a spot at the ITA National Team Indoor Championships with a 4-3 win over California this past weekend. The number 12 Longhorns won 4 singles matches to defeat the 11th ranked host. The ITA National Team Indoor Championships take place at the University of Wisconsin next month. But before that, Texas will take on Illinois and Northwestern.
Texas swimming made a splash in Arizona on Saturday. Both teams defeated the Wildcats, the men outscoring the Cats 155-143 and the women 179-120. On the men's side, junior Townley Haas claimed victory in the 200 medley relay with a time of 1:38, living up to his title of reigning NCAA champion in this event. For the women, Arizona Wildcat turned Texas Longhorn Kennedy Lohman, sweeping the breaststroke events with a time of 2:17 in the 200 yards. The women's swimming and diving team remains undefeated.
Well, Texas track and field is again among the top programs in the NCAA heading into the 2018 season, with the men and women both ranked in the top 15 of the USTF CCCA preseason rankings. And no, I did not misspell that. Sophomore George Patrick shined this weekend in the Texas Tech Classic, placing second in the 60-meter hurdles.
Reports from Friday stated that Texas wide receiver Hemphill Maps would be seeking a transfer from the Texas program. The redshirt freshman played in all 13 games during the 2017 season, finishing with 37 receptions for 402 yards. No confirmation of the transfer has been released by the university.
Now, staying with Hemphill Maps, Christine, how big of a loss do you see this receiver being for Coach Horman and this wide receiver core?
Losing Hemphill Maps would be a pretty good loss for the Longhorns. He's a player that sees a lot of game action with the second most receptions on the team. More than anything, though, this potential transfer heightens the need for a slot receiver for
Absolutely.
the 2018 season. Hurd and Humphrey, the two receivers who are strong inside or outside, are likely the best options for the position.
Absolutely. Well, it'll be interesting to see how Herman can fill this wide receiver spot come springtime and next fall. Thank you for your time tonight, Christine. Always a pleasure. Coming up next, we're talking Longhorns in the Super Bowl. Stick around. Welcome back. Let's take a look at Longhorn sports to come for the week. Wednesday, we have women's basketball at Kansas, 7 p.m. Men's basketball is going to take on Texas Tech. You can catch that on ESPNU. Friday, swimming and diving takes on TCU. Saturday, we have a triplet of sports. Baseball has an alumni game. Women's basketball takes on TCU on Longhorn Network. And men's basketball versus Oklahoma on ESPN at 5:15 p.m. 3 former Longhorns will represent their alma mater in the Super Bowl, which marks the 13th straight year a former Texas player was on a Super Bowl roster. Patriots defensive tackle Malcolm Brown will be on one side of the fence, facing former teammates and current members of the Philadelphia Eagles, linebacker Jordan Hicks and wide receiver Marcus Johnson. You can catch Longhorns in Super Bowl 52, Sunday, February 4th on NBC. Well, that is a wrap for tonight. Thanks again for joining us, and follow TSTV Sports on social media for the latest Longhorn sports coverage throughout the year, and join us right here every Monday night for College Press Box. Our sister show, College Crossfire with Mark Skoll Jr., airs Wednesday at 9. From all of us here in the studio and Master Control, we'll see you next time. Good night.